Welcome back, folks. It is finally part 2 of the end of Attack on Titan. Or, well, I guess this is part 2 of the first part of our episode of part 1 of Attack on Titan, the final season. We did a true Mappa. I told you last time we were doing it as a Mappa style, and I delivered on that promise. So here we are again. Now, we picked up last time, right, the end of chapter 1, the rumbling. Here we are, right? I am ready to go, ready to talk about what comes next for our Warrior Scout Alliance, our remaining folks from our original squad, as well as a couple other folks. But it's me, Brian. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to really get into Erin's skinny legend phase. So I'll pass it off to Emily.
Erin is a skinty queen, but also a war criminal. So there's that. Bye, Brian.
Brian's like, all right.
I am not well. That's it. I think that's it for me, folks. So let's talk about, but not do war crimes.
Hello, everyone. We didn't make you wait 6 months in between. However, welcome to the final season, the final part 1, part 2 of our episode. Jokes write themselves. And super excited to talk about the second half of this episode and the setup for what will be the final episode, which will hopefully be coming soon.
Yeah, this, I heard a lot of rumors that it's supposed to come out soon. Like, I read a rumor that it was supposed to come out August 28th, and I was like, nah, I don't think they could do that because the One Piece live action is coming out right then. Lately, there's been like a lot of competing things. This is a tangent, but Magic the Gathering released a brand new set to try and overshadow Disney's card game, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like the anime community is not like that. Like, they're not that cutthroat. Like, obviously, everyone wants to do well, but I feel like the animators support each other a lot more, and there's like well sentiment. So, with that being said, you heard our Shinzo Sasageos last night. We're not going to do that again. We're just going to dive right in. So, where we left off, right? We'll just give it the old heart over. So, we watched Hanji give their final sacrifice, right? And we're now panning to the plain. So the scouts are starting to escape. They really feel the effects of losing Hanji. Furthermore, they begin to question the crusades they backed in order to fight for the greater good, when the greater good meant someone they cared for was being betrayed. Zooming out, how does this apply to the real world, and how do the themes relate to the present day?
This is just like the overarching question of Attack on Titan anyway, is like, is war ever worth it? And it's gonna depend on who you ask, because victors write history. Obviously, at any point in history and at any war in time, like, a lot of innocent people are lost, and that's like, as hard as that is, that's still almost like an abstract way to look at it, because it's hard to relate to it until it's somebody that you care about, that you have lost, that you have like experienced that range of emotions. And for, the Eldians, like, that was just like an everyday reality from the moment that the wall first like came down. It was people that they knew, people that they cared about, and as we've said, nobody in this show is safe. This has like never really been completely abstract for them. It just continues to pile on and get. I think that, as like Western humans, we are somewhat fortunate in that at least like our generation hasn't really had to experience this in a non-abstract way. That's not to say that we haven't experienced loss of any kind, but like in general, like, we haven't experienced war right on our front lawns. At least not. I think, though, that probably any soldier can relate to these feelings. Anybody who has seen combat, like, is it worth it? And there are people who definitely feel strongly either way. There are people who feel that they have something to defend, and then there are people who feel that there's something enormous that they've lost by partaking in the process at all, because, like, ultimately, what are they fighting for? Like, it's a very complicated and nuanced question. And I think that Attack on Titan does a nice job of, like, packaging that sentiment up as much as possible, because it is the endless question. There is, like, no correct way to answer that, or no correct way necessarily to feel about that. and it varies so greatly between each individual person that, like, I don't know that humanity would ever be able to come to a consensus on, like, exactly what it might be. So it's relatable in that it's, like, unfathomable, I think.
Yeah, I think I've kind of touched on how I feel like Attack on Titan really does a good job at the story is very real world. It's telling a story of war where we as viewers get to see both sides, and we can see that there are, good people and bad people on both sides. There are good choices and bad choices, and that everyone is convicted in their own way, and some choose to protect humanity, some choose to protect the people that they love. I think it's something that comes up in a lot of different stories. Is, do you give up the people that you love for the greater good? Do you give up the people that you care about for to protect a larger group or humanity? That's the $1,000,000 question. A lot of different shows have kind of gone with this theme at other times, and it's a realistic thing because, for us as, millennial Americans sitting here in our comfortable homes, and, like Emily said, we've never had war knock on our doorsteps because, we just don't live in a time where that's happened. It's hard for us to really understand where these characters are coming from because, we don't have experiences with it. And I think that this show does a really, really good job at making it feel real, because I think at the end of the day, none of us would know how to handle these situations. You'd want to be the good person that gives up maybe the person that you love for humanity, but would any of us be able to do that? So it's one of those things that I really it's probably my favorite thing about Attack on Titan is how gray it is, and how just like who's good, who's bad. We really don't have anyone like that. And it's all about how you perceive it and how you make those choices. So I think that's where I'm going to end that thought, because my brain is now short-circuiting.
Yeah, I think a little bit about this is kind of when Connie and Reiner are talking to each other, and they're like, is this what it felt like being the Titan? And how different are we really at this point, right? Because it's unfortunate, but like Reiner's job, and as we kind of learned in season 3, like their purpose and what their role was in Marley was about infiltrating Aldea, really breaking down the walls and trying to destroy them, but at the same time, like building these relationships only to cut them off at some point. And so now they are very similar sentiments of like, we're trying to stop this thing that we created. Can we at least put our differences aside? I love Reiner. I simp for Reiner so much. I think he's so hot. I'm just going to say it. And so these two like best boys coming together and being like, hey, bud, it's okay. We fucked up, but we're going to be all right. I think that's really cool. But as our warrior scouts formulate a plot, our new commander, Armin, mentions the explosive and the colossal titan as a last resort to stop the rumbling. Levi's fine with that, but pushes Armin to understand that they'll most likely have to kill Eren. The plan is short-lived, as Eren calls the group into the pass. As he does, he tells them there will be no compromise. Only Tothakali. Knowing that Armin wanted to not kill his bestie, how does it set the stage for the end of the show?
It's hard to answer when I know what's going to happen, but I found this whole sequence of events to be interesting, and it kind of ties back to some things that I said in the first half of this episode, how I think that Eren doesn't really want to do this. He says that he's given, his group of friends, so this group that's in the past with them, which is Levi, Peak, Reiner, Armin, Connie, and John, and Mikasa. And he's like, you're free to make your decisions. Because Eren has the ability to not allow them to do anything, that because he is with the founder and he has a Titan of royal blood with him. He's able to use the founder's Titan abilities fully because of Zeke being with him. He wants them to fight him. I think right before this, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Reiner said, like, I think he wants to be stopped. I think that, Reiner's thinking back to, the beginning for him as far as like being this Marleyan warrior and being a traitor to the people on the island. And he was like, he wanted to be stopped, essentially. And now he thinks that Eren wants to be stopped. And then they try to talk it out with him. And Eren's like, I literally pulled you in here to discuss that we don't need to have a discussion. That's literally what the line said, I think. And I kind of laughed a little bit. I was like, okay, Eren. But it kind of seems like it's leading into we're going to have to kill Eren. It's been brought up multiple times this entire season. And Mikasa and Armin have always been like, we want to talk it out with him. And we just tried that. And he was like, no, kill me. If you want to stop me, kill me. So does that mean he really wants to be stopped? Does he want to die? I don't know. But I still feel like because he's allowing his friends to have that freedom, he kind of does want to be stopped. He doesn't know if, what he's doing is really the right decision. I also want to mention that I think it was Levi actually that mentioned that possibly if they kill Zeke, that the rumbling might stop because Zeke is the royal that, is allowing Eren to be able to use the Founding Titans abilities fully. And I just love that Levi is still, he's just like, I'm going to do it. Let me kill Zeke. Like, he made that promise to Erwin and he is still holding true to it. And I love Levi. I'll just say that.
Levi is my man's. We love Levi. However, his fatal flaw is that he didn't just kill Zeke in season 3. Will my son someday still be named Levi? Absolutely. Should he have just sliced him up, though? That's a whole episode also. But he just had to give his little speech, his little short man speech. I love that short man.
He had to give his anime speech.
If he had just killed Zeke, it would have been over. But anyway, Attack on Titan. If Levi just killed Zeke.
No.
Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, does Eren want to be stopped? Like, probably. He's clearly, like, struggling. But at the same time, like, again, he's been saying since the beginning, I'm gonna take them all out. So, like, does he feel bad about it? Maybe, but did he still make the choice and is not stopping? Like, yes, he also did that. So, to him, it was right enough to not be swayed. And he even, like, before we got to this point, before the rumbling, he even said, look, if anyone has a better idea, I'm all ears, but, like, nobody has come forward with one that I think will actually work yet. So here we are, and he's, even if conflicted, like, past the point of return. You've committed this hard, like, if you don't just, I think in his mind, if you don't just take essentially the world out, like, they are going to come for my friends. And then my friends will suffer something similar, if not, who knows? Because who knows? Like, if they can take him alive, like, in theory, the cycle could continue to progress and, like, somebody could consume Eren and, like, they really could, like, turn the Uno reverse back on Eldia in a very similar grotesque way. So I think that he feels that he needs to just, like, finish what he's committed to at this point, because as unfathomable as it is, like, again, it's like, it's almost like kind of abstract when it's those other people. It's happening to, like, those people that are not your friends or family. So yeah, I don't really think that he can be convinced otherwise. But at the same time, it's tricky because, like, he knows what's going to happen, memories of the future. But also, like, if Eren can exist, like, truly in the present moment, would he be okay with being stopped, even if that means that he's going to die? Like, I think that he probably, if that's going to happen, like, it has to happen at the hands of his friends. But if, again, assuming that Eren is existing only in this present moment, I think that there's probably a lot of doubt on his part that they could ever even do that to him. Like, knowing, like, this is the only way it's going to happen, and I really don't think that Armin or Mikasa are capable of that, because they're the ones that have, like, saved his ass so many times, whether it's, like, verbal defense from Armin or obviously, like, physical defense from Mikasa. That is, like, the last result that either of them would want as well. So I think that he's saying there will be no argument, and if you're going to stop me, you have to do this thing that I assume is impossible for you.
Yeah, the last statement you made, Emily, always reminds me of the meme of Eren And it's like, I can't beat Mikasa in a fight, so I'll just verbally abuse her. And then I can beat Armin in a fist fight, so I'll just punch the shit out of him. And honestly, Eren, like, literally thrived off the backs of both those components of them. And then in the end, he was like, Uno reverse. He Uno reversed himself. I think at this point, as they're in the paths, I think it's really difficult as, you know, everyone's like, even Levi's like, just stop now and I'll let you off with just a swift kick in the ass. Like, they are really begging him to stop. And he's like, nope, this is the only way. And it's difficult to watch. Like, I kind of relate this to, like, people who are, like, maybe, like, addicts or people who are, like, really understand that the choice that they're making probably isn't the best thing to be doing. However, they're still actively making that choice for themselves. And it's like the pain of watching someone go down the path that you know they shouldn't be is hard because you want to still be there to support them. But also, like, when is it your turn to feel, like, comfort? Like, when do you draw the line of, like, I can't, like, do this anymore. I can't support these behaviors. So I think that's really the turning point for this team is like, hey, he's beyond the point of no return. Like, it's unfortunate, but this is our only option. So really a sad point in the story to see that, like, this is the only conclusion, that either the warrior scouts will die trying to stop the rumbling or Eren will die. Like, at this point, those are the only two outcomes for the show. So that's really interesting to kind of hear. As we kind of go forward in the episode, though, we cut back to the boat where we have Ani, Gabi, Falco, and the head of the Azumabito clan. Now, we hear an interesting inquisition from Falky and Gabo. Wow, we're doing real good. We hear an interesting inquisition from Falco and Gabi, and that since he has some of Zeke's spinal fluid, he has some interesting traits to his Titan, that he might actually be able to fly, since he has a memory of the future, since he's now linked with the founding Titan. Memories from the future, question marks?
They've very briefly mentioned in passing that in the past there was like a variation, this Titan that could fly. But it hasn't, you know, it's like no time in recent memory for anybody. So like any memory that he might have is one of those like inherited memories from a time long past, and probably a time that called for something like that, because I imagine that these, you know, as each human gains these specific Titan powers, the variation of the Titan changes slightly, and we've seen that with the you know, the Jaw Titan, like the variations in these few, and it just manifests differently depending, I think, on the host. So if there's a need for a Titan that has the ability to fly, boy oh boy, what a problem that would have been for humanity in the past, by the way. But like, it's like this evolution, and there certainly is a need for it right now. And also there has been a motif with Falco. I mean, it's in his name. Good God. Like, there have been these motifs with Falco and these like feathers since the first time that we've seen him. So I don't know. Is Falco gonna take to the sky? Find out next week. Find out next year in episode 987, part 3, Attack on Titan.
The year is 2086. I live in a nursery at home. Attack on Titan, the final season, part 82, part 69 is airing. And I finally found out that the next part is the final part. Sorry.
And they found the One Piece.
They found the one. Oh, gosh. First of all, I'm glad we brought up Falco, because Falco is the character that I think is... I'm Team Falco. I'm Team whatever Falco's on, because he's the only one who, like, he's right. Falco can't do anything wrong. He's too pure. I love him so much. But memories of the future, so I'll be honest, when it comes to some of the story of Attack on Titan, I still am a little bit like, I don't really know exactly what that means. I don't know if his memories are of the future of him, because I think that's more of a Attack Titan. That is the Attack Titan's ability. It's not the Founding Titan's ability. And he's talking about his abilities from becoming a Titan because of Zeke's blood, who is a royal, and the Beast Titan. So I think that these are memories of the past, that someone was able to fly at some point in the Jaw Titan, because that's the Titan that Falco has at this point. And I agree, though, that it's been kind of foreshadowed for Falco since the day we met him. I literally just watched the first 30 seconds of the first episode of season 4 with Jenna last night, and it starts with him lying on the battlefield, staring at the sky, looking at birds, and being like, what are you doing here? It's unsafe. And then later on the episode, I know he kind of talks about being confused. He was like in a dream, and he was like, I was flying, I had a sword, wow, wow, or something along those lines. And I don't think that was necessarily him having memories of the future. I think that was just a lot of really intense foreshadowing, letting us know kind of what is going to happen. And then, of course, when we had the first transformation where he turned into the Jaw Titan, he looked like a bird. He had a beak and he had claws. So I think it's interesting. We'll see if he is able to do it in the next episode. But it's interesting that he has memories just because he was a Titan turned from Zeke's spinal fluid. He's the only one that's a Titan shifter from that kind of transformation. So it'll definitely be interesting to see where that goes and how that ends up.
No one got done dirtier than Falco. The memes of I'm forgetting his big brother's name right now.
Colt.
Oh, what's Colt? He's like, Zeke, don't yell. Falco accidentally got some spinal fluid in his mouth. Oh, Zeke's like, that's so bad. Anyway. It's so messed up.
Oh my god. Oh. And that boy doesn't deserve any of the pain. I mean it when I say that boy is the only person I can be fully behind in the show. That's the pure soul of the show.
Yeah.
He never does anything wrong. I'm sorry. Falco never does anything wrong. People can hate me for that, but he literally never does anything wrong.
Didn't do anything wrong. The best. Controversial opinion, though, I still don't like Gabby. I know, and I still don't like her. Sorry.
I think Gabby has a really good character arc. I think
she does.
I think she has one of the best in the show.
I'm just a hater.
Yeah.
I'm just admittedly a hater. I don't like her. At the same time, it's are she and Aaron that different? Not really. As young.
Mm-hmm.
When they're young, they're pretty comparable. I just don't like her.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so while Falco is on the boat, I think this is kind of his first time, I guess, experiencing the, culmination of what being a Titan means, right? Because we've seen him be a Titan kind of in the earlier part of the episode where he is defending the ship and defending team, and he's using his Jaw Titan abilities that he got from Porco. Now he's kind of understanding the after effects of it. I think it's really interesting that he's kind of seeing things that he might, have some new powers, or he might have some ways to get through this, which I think is really cool, because I don't know if it's something that Aaron saw coming or if it's something that he ignored, right? Because if he has memories of the future as well, he should be able to see this. So I think it comes back around to the question of, did Aaron know that was going to happen, and that might have led to his downfall, and he wanted to see if, the next generation of humans understood how to combat evil? Or is it his own hubris and saying, no, I actually want to do the rumbling and there's nothing that can stop? I don't know. There's a lot here. There's always a lot to talk about, right? So dense material. All right, well, meanwhile, a train carrying that seems to be the last of the Eldian population is heading towards Fort Salta. A lot happens during this time as passengers hope to see airships that are going to take them to safety. Once at the top, they see airships that are already flying out of reach, but not as an escape, but as a last chance for a bombing attempt. The commander of the fort declares this location to be the last bastion of humanity. I mean, like Drake said, what a time to be alive.
Oh man, I would not want to be alive during this time. I imagine being in those ships or that commander, and he says that he pretty much admits to the fault of Marley. He's like, we're the ones who allowed this to fester. We're the ones who, turned this person into a monster, and he's fighting back right now. and it's our fault. We have to atone for our sins, essentially. And it's sad that it's in this situation. It's like he has to be faced with certain death in order for him to really come to his senses like that. But at the same time, it's like, that was really powerful. And just to declare, like, that this is the last chance for humanity, essentially, like, the weight on the shoulders of these people is so heavy. We go back and forth. Who do we cheer for in this story? And I think that it's really easy to cheer for them in this moment because, like, they just want to live. That's all they want to do. They want to protect their family. They want to protect their kids. They want to protect their friends that are all there. And they don't know how much of the world is gone at this point. They only know what's there in that little area. So it's a heavy weight, and they want to carry that out, but at what cost? And at least they understand that it's really, truly their oppression that led them to this moment.
Yeah, this is a very interesting time for us to be recording this episode. There's a lot going on presently in the world that definitely resonates in some similar ways. Obviously, there are some differences too, and we won't necessarily get into that other than that these are like characteristics and patterns that humanity falls into over and over and over, which is, I think, either the beauty or the hopelessness of the message of Attack on Titan overall. I'm really excited for the finale episode to be coming out in a few short weeks here, but just, to piggyback off of everything Hannah said, it's very poignant to see that, like, this commander who's, like, not an important character. This is, like, not somebody that we've really seen much of or that we're going to see again necessarily after this, is willing to give it one last big effort. But at the same time, it almost seems like his life, maybe not his life is flashing before his eyes, but like he's gone through the stages of grief to land at acceptance, I think, at this point. And it's like, you know what, like, this is something that we could have certainly done better. If given the chance to live, we're going to do this better. But it took this extreme to get to that point. Before Eren had initiated any of this, like, I don't think that it was anything that would have crossed their mind, or, and that's also, again, just like human nature. Like, they selfishly want to protect themselves, to protect their families, and sometimes they don't care about what the cost is for those other people. So interesting. Also interesting, though, that, like, in the same breath, even though he's saying all this, that he, we are talking about, like, this could be the last hope for humanity, but they're talking about, like, Marley and humanity right now. Maybe the rest of the world, but, like, the Islanders are still, like, differentiated in that statement because we know that, like, they're okay right now, but they're still, like, othered in that statement, like, not human. The not humans will be okay. It's very interesting. It's very poignant. It's very dark, but I think it's a really necessary moment in this episode.
It's kind of, it reminds me of, like, the statement, like, a little too little too late. Like, you had to be faced with this in order to finally see that maybe what you've been doing is wrong. Then you're still not that great of a person. He's also, like, kind of standing from the safety of this area too. Like, he's not in the ship with them.
Right. And I mean, and a lot of these, Marleyans are, like, kind of brainwashed too. They've been fed, like, propaganda their whole lives, and they weren't really given an opportunity to develop independent thought because it was not only not provided as, like, part of the education, but it was, like, heavily penalized anytime it got caught. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't really an opportunity to develop a different opinion. Yeah. So how are you going to do better when you don't know better?
It's true.
Going back to something that Emily said earlier in the episode, but Victor's right history, right? And so Marley, of course, with the separation and still, like, that othering of Marley versus Eldians, that history that was taught was that the Eldian population is, not what it's cracked up to be. It's not something that's worth fighting for and protecting. So definitely kind of an interesting take on that. But as we go forward, unfortunately, the bombing run is not successful, and the Beast Titan ends up striking out all of the airships as they turn to rubble amongst the Colossals. It appears as if all hope is gone, but the squad rolls up. Let's go. Honestly, what a fucking entrance, though. This is honestly one of my favorite moments in the show, because everyone was like, at this point, like, guys, we all got to admit there was no wrong, there was no right answer. We all fucked up, but now's our moment to make it right, and let's do it, and let's be the arbiters of fate. This moment hype you guys up too?
Oh, absolutely. This is like one of the first times we've really seen the squad roll up together in all of the many parts that make up season 4 that have taken many years. So like it's but it has been like several years for us since we've seen something like this, and obviously we're a few members short compared to like where we would have started this story. And yet, you know, there's a lot that's echoed here from earlier seasons, and like the growth that is shown by these characters throughout all 4 of these seasons is just remarkable to see, like where they've ended up now. They're like the special ops unit, and also like they're who's left. There's not the Eldians got pretty messed up too. The Marlians are messed up. These are probably the strongest people, humans, left on planet Earth at this moment. They've not only gained this much strength over the course of their training and the course of their development over this entire period of time, they also are developing their will as well, because they're about to go try to take down their best friend. That really takes a lot of courage and a lot of inner strength that I don't think... Definitely somebody like Armin. Armin has incredible character development, and so does Mikasa, because Mikasa would never have raised a hand against Eren, and like they have to. They absolutely have to now, because he's made it very clear. Like, I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, I think Mikasa and Armin are still hopeful that like their plan is to get him and drag him out and talk to him still, but at the same time, I think this whole group is just acting on what they believe to be right. And that means fighting their best friend. And that means, you know, trying to end this senseless slaughter of so many innocent lives for the handful of people that have oppressed them. And this, to answer your question, yes, this moment was super hype and super, super amazing. I remember when we watched this episode for the first time, I was sitting in a hotel room in like Sacramento, and I knew that the episode was about to end because of the way it was so hype, and it was like this battle is about to start, and I was like, this is 100% where it's ending, and I was right. But what I really, really liked is that they brought back the OST from like season 1. And they've done that a few times this season, but I don't know if y'all know, but the entirety of season 4, which of course is 3 years old at this point, had actually technically a new composer for the soundtrack, along with like the new studio of Mappa. The one that had done season 1 through 3, he still is like consulting on it and still helps when they use the older tracks, but like there's been a lot of new themes because it's actually been a new composer for the majority of it. So whenever it brings back old music, it's like reminding us of when times were simpler, when it was literally just humanity versus the Titans, and there were still questions that were getting asked in season 1 that was like, what? But for the most part, the story was just like, okay, Titans bad, humans good, you know? And so much has changed since then. And these characters have changed so much since then. Like Emily said, like this is probably the most powerful, how many is there now? 7 of them, you know, group of humans in the entire world to take down, for many of them, their best friend that they've done all of their development with until this year for them, essentially. So it's a big culmination of the story, essentially, because I mean, we get the feeling this is probably like we're obviously nearing towards the end. We know there's only 1 episode left that's airing in a couple of weeks. It was really well done, and I think the icing on the cake was bringing back that OST from season 1 to remind us of what these characters have done, what they're capable of, and at the end of the day, maybe the story really is about humanity versus the Titans.
The world may never know. Well, actually, we will know, because sidetrack, Isayama has decided to pick back up the pen and give us another chapter. So we'll see what that entails. Also, I've seen some news that they're going to give us an interview with Eren Yeager. Oh, God.
I kind of love that.
First ever anime character to get interviewed. I wonder why.
Yeah. But part of me is, I was actually kind of mind blown by that, because I'm like, and it must be because I think it's Japan's version of like whatever NPR is for us. So it's like, it has to be reputable. But I feel like even our NPR has interviewed like the Muppets and stuff, you know, because it's like a pure thing that brings joy. And so I was like, I can't believe that they actually haven't done like Hello Kitty or like, you know what I mean? Like some like big children's character that's like super iconic. Of course, it's Eren Yeager first up. The warmonger.
Genocidal maniac.
Perfect.
Yeah, first
Tonight
up we
at
got
8.
Eren. But as the squad begins their assault on Eren's skinny legend Titan, Armin seeks one of the most important questions of the show. In what way is Eren free? Has Eren achieved freedom, do you think?
I think this goes back all the way to when we talked about, the beginning of this episode when Eren says, I've achieved freedom, essentially, because and I say this again, I think Eren is the least free character in this entire show. He literally saw his memories of the future when he kissed Historia's hand, and ever since then, he's just been living what he saw unfold. He has concluded that he can't change anything. He very clearly, in my mind, did not want to kill innocent people, but he saw what he had to do. He saw that he was going to do, and he's just doing what he saw. And I think that, again, him saying that he is free and him saying, that he's achieved that is literally his way of coping with the fact that he will never achieve it, essentially. I think he knows that he will never achieve it, but he's saying that he did because, first of all, he wants his friends to believe that, because I think he wants them to fight him. I think he wants them to do that. So no, he's not free, and I think there's a little bit within him that knows he's not, but he is outwardly saying it to cope, essentially.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think Eren has ever found true freedom. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that he where I disagree with Hannah is I do think that he has felt like he has at some point. And part of what makes Eren such a wonderful and complicated and nuanced character is this future, memories of the future concept. Because we start and he's like obviously very different at the beginning of the show than he is at the end. One of his biggest goals he is pretty consistent with. And so that goal, of course, is I'm going to kill them all. And you'll notice that sentence is pretty vague. We obviously think it's going one way at the beginning, and then when we hear it reflected again later on, it means something very, very, very different. Eren is like the embodiment of like destiny versus choice versus fate kind of thing. It seems like a choice at the beginning, like a very active reaction to something that's happened to him, like this undid my entire reality. My mom, everything that I cared about is gone, so I'm choosing to go do this. But if he has the memories of the future and like time is warped in that way, then adult Eren and all the past and future iterations of Eren have been manipulating him since before that time as well. It's like messing with time's very complicated. So like, did he ever really stand a chance to follow a completely different path? It seems like I personally think Isayama suggests that the answer is like no. And that's also part of why I love the ending of Attack on Titan so much, which we're not going to completely talk about yet. We'll wait until the episode comes out in November. But I think that a lot of it is about choice versus fate. And I think that Eren is resigned to fate, in my opinion.
It's interesting because, kind of as Emily was mentioning, I do think I kind of disagree with both of you on both fronts. I do think Eren was free the entire time. Now, the reason why I say that is because Eren, if he had memories of the future, right, he understood what was coming to him, and he had the choice to make it different if he saw his own ending, right, or if he saw what was coming. Nonetheless, the Eren that comes around, or the Eren that manipulates time, also had that choice as well to try and change the future. There were, I guess there's also different versions of Eren that we're talking about at that point too. Like, kind of as you mentioned, season 1 Eren was free in the sense to try and join the scout regiment. Season 2 Eren was free in the sense of trying to like actively go after Reiner, or trying to like fall back to comrades who kind of died in the horse race. Not the horse race, but you know what I mean. Season 3, we looked at kind of the like final battle between the Colossal Titan and the Armor Titan fell out. And then we start season 4 with him fighting the Warhammer Titan and him going off on his own to do things. I think in each season he demonstrates freedom in a different way, but overall I do think he was free because he saw the path in front of him, but yet continually chose to make that path, or his self at one point chose that path for his past self. So at some point, some Eren had freedom. Do we know which one that is? No.
I think that's what makes the story so interesting, is that we all have very different views on Eren as a character. And I don't think any of us are necessarily wrong. It's just how each one of us views how his story has gone. And maybe that's the point. Like Emily said, Eren is a very nuanced character. And maybe the point is the fact that it's really up to the viewer to determine if he's truly free or not.
It's a masterpiece. Chef's kiss.
All right. Well, with that being said, let's go on to our favorite moments from this episode. Now, I did already mention a few of my favorite moments, and I'm going to give an honorary mention here to the conversation between Connie and Reiner. I think this was so sweet to see them, while they had harbored so much anger and hate towards each other after season 2's events, they still came back around. And I think it was really sweet because they were able to finally put their differences aside each other, and that's kind of where everything, I feel like, fell back into place, right? All the pieces of the puzzle came back together when they had finally decided that the differences between them, or the missions they had embarked on, were no longer worth pursuing in the face of hurting people that they really cared about.
There's so many good moments in this episode to pick from, and I don't think we mentioned any when we split this into 2, so I'm gonna cover the whole episode. I loved the use of the old OST, and like the old score is just like, and because we hadn't heard it for so long, it had been literally years for us, not as long for our characters, but you know, we have like the devastating Hanji scene in this episode, and like the use of the song there is incredible, and then we get like the Titan song a little bit at some point in the episode as well, and like they're both done so well, and I think all of us were kind of hoping that we would get to hear them again. And so then like when we did, it just goes to show like how much music can really have an impact on the story and the characters, and how like the music reflects the change, but also like the full picture, like the full story that's come full circle for all of these characters. We're coming back to like some of these roots that we haven't seen or heard in a really long time. I thought it was really, really, really well done.
Yeah, that is definitely one of my favorite things about this episode. And part 2 of season 4 had it a few times as well, just bringing back those old OSTs. It's so hard to pick a favorite moment. This episode was jam-packed, and of course it was like almost exactly an hour long too, so like there's way more to pick from here. As crazy as it may sound, because it's one of the reasons why I've only watched this episode twice, but I think it has to be Hanji. Even though literally sobbing, like cannot hold it together. There's so many cool moments to call in that moment, and you know, like Levi saying Shinzo Sasageo for the first time, that's where the waterworks start, and I can see in Emily's face I shouldn't have said that. Or the reaction of the characters afterwards, right when Levi's like, Hanji, watch us. Just the way that calls back to like Erwin, and literally what Hanji, what they had just said to Levi 10 minutes prior to this. You know, are they watching us? Are our fallen comrades watching us? And then Levi, after Hanji dies, says, Hanji, watch us. Like, just the storytelling in that moment alone is enough to bring even the strongest people to their knees. And I look for shows. I laugh because I always joke that I need to watch shows that are like happy and go lucky. I love the shows where I'm crying over these characters. I feel so much connection to it. And even though Hanji is my favorite character, so this is literally like the first show ever where my favorite character is killed off. It's still such a powerful moment. And when I think about this episode, it's centered around that. So I'd have to say that's my favorite.
I think that's completely fair. And I loved, while we're talking about that moment, that Hanji got like the gentlest death out of everybody. Because we've seen beloved characters go through some brutal stuff, and we knew what was hinted at, that like what happened, but we just got to see like Hanji waking up, and that was like so much gentler than what we've gotten with other people. That was like so nice and so well done. So thank you, Isayama, for not being like Gege. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Here, takes a number, Gege.
It's on site.
Alrighty. Well, that is all we have for today. So until next time, don't forget to hit us up on TikTok, Instagram, and all of our socials. And of course, umai!
Umai!
Umai!